This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
We got Connor O'Gara with us from Saturday Down South here in this Monday afternoon halftime edition. Connor, what's new in your world?
Gentlemen, not a whole lot. I can't say I kept up with the XFL over the weekend. I don't know if that's going to get me in trouble, if that's going to make me a non-football guy. But, you know, once that season ends, the regular season, postseason college football deal, I got to get my weekends back to actually be a productive husband. So it did not make the cut in the O'Gara household this weekend.
And sooner or later, you're going to have to be a productive father, too. And those weekends turn into very important times. So I would just say good luck.
That's all I need, man. Look, there's a lot of prep that goes into it at this stage of the game. And my wife has the understanding of, like, okay, Saturdays in the fall, that's going to be her time. All of my time during the week on some of those days. But, yeah, look, I'm trying to do what I can to get ready at this stage of the game, and a lot of priorities to prepare for having a first child. And no disrespect to the XFL and the fine folks over there, but it's just not high on our list right now.
Yeah, not high, not even on my list. Same with the USFL. I love the NFL. I love college football. I don't need it in the spring, not at all. But what I do need is to ask you, how long did it take you to figure out your scheduling model that you've put together for SEC football? And the only reason I ask is because when I worked for a minor league baseball team, my boss was the one who put together the league schedule. And everybody complains about a schedule because they never seem to understand how difficult it is to make a schedule. He once put an empty schedule grid on my desk months before a season started, and he said, "The Texas League needs a new schedule. See if you can make one." And I couldn't figure out anything with this. It would have taken days for me to figure that thing out. Maybe football's different because there's fewer games. But how long did it take you to figure out exactly whatever team's schedule would look like?
It took a while. And for the record, all I was doing was trying to come up with the 3 permanent rivalries. That was my only goal. I wanted to figure out what's the best way to do this, to have some sort of competitive balance, to preserve some of these rivalries. You cannot preserve all of them. I don't care who you are. But until you actually sit down and do this, it is difficult. And I had moments where, so to answer your question, it took me a couple hours to sit here and actually try and figure this out, just to try and see if I could come up with something that I thought made sense. And to be honest, I wouldn't have had my name on this model that I have, the 3-6 model, 3 permanent rivalries for SEC teams and 6 rotating home and homes. I wouldn't put my name on if I didn't feel at least somewhat good about it. But the problem would be I would run into a team where I'd be like, all right, I only gave Ole Miss like Kentucky, Vandy, and I don't know, like Mizzou. And then I'd be like, well, I can't do that. I mean, I can't have, a schedule that favorable. And then I have to start over because you can't just tweak one thing. That's the thing. Everything is connected. So for the people that say, oh, you just switch out this game and this game, I'm like, okay, so you're going to tell me how this totally doesn't impact the 14 other teams that we're talking about here. That's the difficult thing that I would get to. And I hit a dead end probably like 3 or 4 times. I come back to it a little bit, and then I was like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We're going to do this with calm heads will prevail, and I will figure out a way to not make everybody totally hate me. And I haven't read the comments, but I don't think I did too bad of a job.
Yeah, when are we doing this 3-6? Who'd you give for Arkansas's main rival? Like, who would you? Would it be LSU, Missouri, or when are we going to this? Who would you have for Arkansas's 3?
The 3 that I had for Arkansas was Texas A&M, and Mizzou. And I played with Arkansas a lot. They did not have a deal breaker, no doubt about it, game that I needed to get on the schedule. I only had 5 of those. That's it. I mean, the way that I broke this down, I started at these games. I said, okay, you got to have Alabama, Auburn, got to have Florida, Georgia, got to have the Egg Bowl, in my opinion. You need Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Texas, and then Texas against Texas A&M. Those 5 things. Everything else, I'm going to try. I'm going to do the best I can, but they're all subject to change. And so I went through it that way, and I started at those points. And when you start at those points, you realize, okay, so you can't just give, Georgia, you can't be like, all right, Auburn, two of their three permanent rivals will be Alabama and Georgia. That's not fair. It's different when you have 7 permanent games that you're playing, which that's what the current model is. But when you only have 3, I can't give Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia. That doesn't make any sense. So I try to make it as balanced as possible from a competitive standpoint. I try to keep some of those rivalries intact, like with Arkansas. Being able to play Texas on an annual basis would be awesome. I would love to see them play Oklahoma as well. That didn't really line up with the way that I had things drawn up, but getting to see kind of a revival of the Big 12 days, the Southwest Conference days, I think for some of those teams was something I had in mind.
So no Georgia Auburn on an annual basis. Again, this is just going by Connor's column. No Georgia Auburn on an annual basis. No Alabama Tennessee on an annual basis. No Ole Miss LSU on an annual basis. These are real rivalries. But this also goes to show how difficult it's going to be for everybody to figure this thing out. Because some annual rivalries are going away. You'll play them every other year, but you're not going to play them every year any longer.
Yeah, you'll go 2 years without having a game like that in your schedule. And I'm not saying it's nothing. I'm absolutely not. But this isn't some Texas A&M situation where you're going to go a decade without seeing somebody in your conference. And it's going to create more parity. That's the good thing. And I did this breakdown wherein I thought I gave Kentucky the most favorable of the 3 permanent rivals, and I thought I gave Tennessee the most difficult. I had Tennessee getting Georgia, LSU, and Vandy, and I had Kentucky getting Florida, Mississippi State, South Carolina. So I'm like, all right, let's just play this out. And I did the breakdown of what their schedule could look like, including those 6 rotating home and homes. And you kind of put them side by side, and you realize, oh, wait a minute. When you have 9 conference games and you're actually playing all these other teams, this schedule isn't as lopsided as it currently is. I mean, the current model, it's way lopsided. And if you don't think that, you haven't been paying attention to the fact that there's been 2 SEC East teams that have won the conference in the post-Tim Tebow era. So from that standpoint, you kind of look at it, you're like, all right, we're getting closer to parity. And in a 16-team super conference era, you need parity because it's all about the playoff, and the SEC will create it if it follows this model.
So, last week, and this goes to scheduling here too, you saw where Ohio State canceled their home and home with Washington. Now, I think that has more to do with the fact that USC and UCLA are joining the Big Ten the same year, and Ohio State, and I don't think any Big Ten team is going to be wanting to make 2 trips out west in the same season. But when the Big Ten also already has 9 games anyway, so it's not that different. And as far as that's concerned, the SEC is a little different though because you're going to move from 8 to 9, and we're going to see cancellations in future schedules. Would you think there would be, like, for instance, Arkansas, has I think it's a 4-year series with Oklahoma State, but they also play, like Tulsa and Memphis. Where do you think which games get canceled in that sense? Would it be a Power 5 opponent, or would it be more like like a Group of 5 opponent?
Every team is going to be different, but the trend in the 2020s, if you look at these future schedules, is loading up on Power 5 teams. Look at Georgia's future schedule. Georgia has years where they already have 4 Power 5 non-conference games lined up, and they're going to be canceling one of those Power 5 games. You say, all right, why? Why now? Why does that make sense to do that? And why is it not standard, okay, you're going to play 9 Power 5 teams every single year? Well, because we're talking about a different playoff era. And if we're about to enter a time in which you can go 9-3, not play in your conference championship and still make the college football playoff, all right, great. Load up on that. You can be an 8-4 team and have a really difficult schedule, be acknowledged for that, and there's at least a little bit more nuance to look at those 8-4 teams as opposed to a 10-2 team who plays nobody. Whereas in the current model of the playoff, man, it's like, look, if you have more than one loss, good luck. I mean, maybe play the number 1 team in the country twice, like Auburn did in 2017, just to have a chance, or like what LSU was trying to do this year, where they beat Alabama, and then it's like, oh yeah, you got to beat Georgia in the SEC championship too. But other than that, man, it's been pretty much few and far between. So that's I think how it's going to play out moving forward. And the Power 5 teams are going to get the benefit of the doubt. There will be some Power 5 cancellations. That's inevitable. But I think those, for the most part, will be the ones that stay on the schedule. And there'll be some FCS teams that won't get a very important 7-figure payday.
What other conference do you think this going to 12 playoff teams? What other conference does this help that can have a chance to have 3 Power 5 teams. Like, we can have 3 SEC teams in this 12-team playoff. What other conference could have 3 teams?
The Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten has been the conference that has had good, not great teams. That is what they have been. And like, if you actually go back and look at it in the playoff era, and if you played out the 12-team playoff model with each year that we've been in the 4-team playoff, I think the Big Ten might actually have more teams in that than the SEC, which is a weird thing to say out loud because obviously since Ohio State won the national championship in the first year of the playoff, Big Ten has 1 playoff win. That's it. They're the team, though, that has a little bit more of that depth. And now with adding a team like USC, you would think, okay, it's not necessarily just being one of the 3 or 4 best teams in college football. We've seen a lot of years in which, Wisconsin's been knocking on the door, Penn State's been knocking on the door, going to all these New Year's Six Bowls, and you can kind of be like, all right, well, let's just get as many chances as possible, and then maybe one year, you'll have like 3 of the 4 semifinal teams, and you're going to give yourself a better chance. The Big Ten has clearly the best chance to do that. I don't think it's really close. Now, are they going to be able to get over the hump and all of a sudden start winning national championships on a yearly basis? No, I don't think so. I don't think they have the talent to do it just yet. I don't think they spend on recruiting the way that they need to, and I think that's going to hold them back. But they should be able to take another step in terms of having more playoff representation in the 12-team model.
Well, also with Notre Dame, is there any favorites there? What do they have to do? Do they just have to win 9 regular season games, and they're pretty much in the playoff 12 every year?
It's a great question because I actually am one of those people that kind of defends Notre Dame's schedule because I do think it's difficult to play some of the annual games that they have set up and going out to USC and they played Michigan a good amount as well. It wasn't like Notre Dame just loaded up on cupcakes, but at the same time, the way that this is going to work out now with it's the 4 highest rated conference champions will have the bye in that first round. Notre Dame's not going to be that. At the same time, I would also argue Notre Dame, who cares? Notre Dame getting to host a playoff game in the first round, I think that's really exciting, and that kind of moves the needle for that program to make them seem even more relevant, which, look, let's be honest, it's hard to be considered relevant when you've got 1 win against an AP top 5 team in the 21st century. So, look, I think that's the thing that Notre Dame is kind of working against, but I don't think that they're in any hurry to join a conference, and I think that they're going to stand pat.
Connor, I remember having this conversation probably twice in the last 3 or 4 years, but now there might be signs that the Pac-12 is really in trouble. Like the Big 12 has made their expansion and doesn't seem like they're going anywhere. Heck, they're talking about maybe expanding even more in the future. The Pac-12, they have to send out statements to try to calm their people down about media rights, and it doesn't look like, networks are really all that interested in the Pac-12. A couple of networks apparently have pulled out of negotiations for Pac-12 rights. And the schools that you're reading about potentially going to the Pac-12 don't move the needle. Is the Pac-12 in danger of existence or just in danger of not being taken less seriously than they already are?
So I've got something that I'm working on for the Saturday Down South podcast about why the Pac-12 is like the newspaper industry. That's what it reminds me of. It is an organization that is hanging on for dear life, and right now the writing is on the wall with this media rights deal and the way that this is playing out. And if you haven't followed this, the Pac-12 looks like pretty much if NBC doesn't say yes at this point, which who knows, because obviously they've got the deal set up with the Big Ten as well. If NBC isn't on board, they could be in streaming territory. And that is not a place where anybody wants to be, especially at a time when it seems like live sports is really the only premium left for cable television. That is a bad, bad place to be. And knowing the teams that are already leaving your conference in that market in Los Angeles, it's bad. And it just seems like they're holding on for dear life. And you know what? The mistakes that they've made, more than a decade ago with the way that their conference had its own TV network is kind of responsible for that. And they didn't see the vision the way that the Big Ten and the SEC did. And now they're kind of on the outside looking in. But it's bad, and it looks like it's only going to get worse.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. BetOnline, where the game starts.